So on this rainy day, trying to drive out of this parking garage, we will discuss Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kyosaki, and why is it such an important book to read. It's not because it will give you all the details necessary to be successful in a certain type of investing, but it gives you a mindset. And that's the most important part, that your mindset is shifting. So, as mentioned in the book, he has a rich dad and a poor dad, and there is a different type of mindset. For example, his real dad, which he calls the poor dad, was successful. If you look at it from a normal way and you compare it that he was, for example, teaching people, so he was intellectually sharp, good education, also having this biggest asset being his own house, which is also a good thing, you might think or add. But he was not as successful as the rich dad. So the rich dad was not his real dad, but the dad of his friend. And he teaches Robert how to be entrepreneurial, to have your own business, be your own boss instead of working for someone else and making them rich. He tried to get the focus on what can make you yourself rich and happy. Happiness is also an important factor. Even if you have to work at least as hard, but you're knowing that you're building at your own foundation. Also perhaps for your children, the next generation. This can be generational wealth as well. And that can be a big benefit, a huge benefit. And what you will learn from Robert Kyosaki is differentiate between liabilities and assets. So a liability is something that takes away money from you, so it's costing you all the time, whereas an asset is producing, so it adds to your cash flow. And that's an important thing to take into consideration. So for example, Robert Kyosaki says that your own house is a liability, so something that takes away from your cash flow instead of something that produces for your cash flow. Whereas if you have the same home and you rent it to someone else, then that same house is becoming something that produces. And by producing, it becomes an asset. But that's also a different way to look at it. So instead of walking the way that our parents, therefore also the analogy with rich dad poor dad have taught us, or you walk a way that is more successful and really helps you in the longer run. And that's also what he teaches. If you want to become something, so for example, if you want to become successful or rich or whatever, an entrepreneur, you should do the things that also entrepreneurs are doing. If you look at lunacy, it's people who keep doing the same thing but expect different results. If something is not working and you keep doing that, it will not magically change into something that will be very successful. Perhaps you should change it up and do something else. And oftentimes your parents and also other people around you will tell you, and they will mean well, because that's also what they need to manage. You need to do this and that to become successful. But please take into consideration, your parents might be very wise and they love you. That's very important. But also understand that oftentimes your parents are also not successful, or not as successful as you're striving to be. And then perhaps they are not the best to give you that advice, because they give you advice, the best advice that they can give you, but they don't have access to the advice that you need to become really successful. So also please take that then Robert Kyosaki also teaches you something else, and that is there are 4 ways to provide cash flow, income. So you can be an employee, so you work for someone else. That's what the majority of people are doing, and perhaps also your parents did or are doing. You can be self-employed, so you work for yourself, but you have to put in a lot of time. So time equals money. It's a little bit the same as being an employee, only now you are your own boss. So the things that you need to take into consideration. If you're an employee, your boss also has to mitigate risk and has to have a system in place where you're working for him. So that can have an upside if you're an unreliable person, so to say, or your health is not that reliable, then there is a safety net. So the majority of people altogether, they created safety nets. Also, if you become unemployed, normally you have some unemployment things in the Netherlands, for example, that can help you out, which are not in place when you are self-employed. But the other side is, if you're good at what you do and you're self-employed, then you don't have to pay for those that are less reliable workers, your fellow employees, and also the additional margin that normally your boss would take for himself, for the company, can now also flow back to you. So now when you put in time, you also get a direct correlation there. So it can be very harsh if you're not that well suited or reliable, but can also be quite profitable if you are, but still you're trading time for money. Then you can also be an owner of a business. Then you have a system in place, and oftentimes multiple employees. So you have your own business, you're not self-employed, there are more people working for you, and you don't have to trade your time for money that much. So it's not that there is a direct correlation in how much time you put in and the hourly tariff that you can get out of that. So that's the benefit of being a business owner, a real business owner. And then you have the fourth and the last group is the investment group. So these people, they bring in money instead of taking it out, but they bring in money so that the money works for them. So in other words, in the other groups, especially being an employee or self-employed, you work, put in time, so you work hard to get money, and an investor uses money that they already have to work for them to make it more money. And that's can be that you have, for example, stocks in multiple businesses, or you're an angel investor or whatever, but you're not trading time for money. You also are not leading the company, you're just an investor in company. So if you take the entire scale of being an employee, oftentimes you trade less time but also less money. When you're self-employed,